I ended my ex-best friend's career, ruining her life. This was a few years ago. I used to be friends with this girl in college, we'll call her Jackie, and we're both pursuing our nursing degrees. We got along really well for the majority of the school year except towards the end. I began liking a boy who she knew about, and then had nasty with him anyway. We both talked about it, and she understood how hurt I was and promised never to do something like that again. Fast forward to nearing our graduation. Like 1 year later, another boy I had been seeing for a while who came to our place for a pre-party. We all left at the same time. Jackie and I shared an apartment, and then went to the party. Jackie left and so did the boy. I figured they were both going to campus together since we had apartments next to each other, and so I just stayed with the rest of my group. I came back, only to hear them having intimacy. I was devastated. He was my boyfriend, and I finally thought I found the one. It was a few short months, yes, but still he was so sweet and I thought he cared about me. I knew I needed to get back at her for hurting me, and here is how I did. We both smoked heavily. After graduation, I still was pretending to like her. We both moved back home, which ironically was close to each other, and began working at the same hospital as nurses, different units. Our hospital had a strict drug policy, which forbid any drug use. I stopped smoking, but she didn't. I would always convince her to, and I'd just have a drink or pretend to take a hit from it. Sometimes I'd even fake roll one and just smoke a cigarette while she smoked it. After about 2 months of me stopping drugs and her continuing, I left an anonymous note on my manager's desk saying, "Jackie is high now. You need to test her." She would never go to work high, just smoke a day before her shift. She was never ever inebriated while working. Well, about 1 hour later, Occupation Health came, and everyone, doctors, techs, unit clerk, cleaning staff, etc., was tested on the unit to prevent any discrimination, and if you left, you would be breaking policy and risk termination. Jackie immediately texted me after freaking out in the break room that she needed to talk. I ran up and faked to have no idea, and was comforting her saying it'd be fine and nothing to worry about. 1 week later, terminated. She violated the drug policy, which results in immediate termination. She was blacklisted at the hospital and all nearby ones as well. Because of the state I was in too, at the time it was a controlled substance, which made it especially bad. We worked at that hospital for only a few months. Now, she has only been able to work in a local office as a nurse or receptionist, making about 1/4 of what she could have been. No other job will hire it. Maybe one a few states away would, but I am not sure. Do I regret this? Will I ever tell her? Probably not. But is karma a bitch? Certainly. Number 2. In 4th grade, I told my friend about my mom's affair and then accused her of lying and making it up. When I was in 4th grade, I saw my mom, who was married to my dad, kiss a family friend also married with kids who went to my school, passionately on the lips at a small house party. I wasn't too fazed by it at the time. I already knew there was something going on between them, and as a 4th grader, I didn't really understand what cheating was, or that it was a really big deal in marriages. I ended up telling my group of friends about it on the playground, and I named names. They knew the man as well. They were a very well-known, well-loved family. That night, my one friend tells her mom what I said, and the next day, my mom gets a call asking if it was true. When my mom came into my bedroom to ask me what I had said on the playground, and if I'd used the word affair I totally panicked. I could tell from the tone of her voice, the seriousness of it, that I had done something really bad. I vividly remember the dread I felt about this. I was already afraid of my mother's anger and rages over small things, and this was the worst thing I had ever done. So I lied and said that I hadn't said anything. That night I remember the massive knot in my stomach from fear, and I thought to myself that I wish I didn't have to wake up the next morning. I was a wreck for weeks. My mom asked me 3 times if I was sure I was telling the truth, and I said yes all 3 times. I learned after confessing the truth to my mom over 5 years later, in high school, that apparently everyone had believed my story and thought that my friend, the other girl, was just making up stories. I feel so bad to this day when I think of it. Number 3. I called CPS on my daughter, and she is facing losing custody of her baby. For context, my daughter is 15 years old. She has been living in my house with her 2-month-old son since he was born, and I recently reported her to Child Services. She has a case opened, and the case manager is on the verge of recommending removal. Several factors at play. When she first told me she was pregnant, I told her she either got an abortion, gave the baby up for adoption, or she could have the baby. But I would give her nothing but what I am legally required to. She had only recently started high school, and I will be the first to admit I took the news exceptionally hard. I was scared out of my mind for her. My wife had always kept things open and told me she'd taken her to our local health department to talk about birth control. Our daughter opted out and her doctor was in support. So we got her a large bag of condoms in the event she were to choose to become sexually active. She was prepared, she had the knowledge, she refused the birth control and ended up pregnant. Honestly, we couldn't even afford to support her and the baby if we wanted to. My wife hasn't worked since 2011, and her disability hardly makes a dent in our expenses. We finally had to downsize our home and sell my wife's car just a few months before my daughter announced her pregnancy. I was working hours that just weren't sustainable, and my wife needed me to help her at home. About 5 months into the pregnancy, my daughter insisted on raising the baby. Her boyfriend moved away to live with family in another state and didn't tell her. She found out when the relatives made a post on social media about how excited they were he was there. And then, she was slowly blocked by the rest of the family. She hasn't heard from him since. He has never met his son, and the family has never reached out. I told my daughter when she refused to abort that I would in no uncertain terms support her child, that I would love and treat them like a grandparent is expected to, but I would not be financially responsible for its care or keeping. And if she could not find a way to provide, I would call the appropriate authorities to intervene. She dropped out but only got a part-time job, was unmotivated to get her general educational development or diploma through adult education. I actually offered to pay for her class fee and test fees and expected that my wife would take care of the baby while she was at work. She would often forget and miss a feed, refuse to pump milk regularly and got a major breast infection, would often delay changing to save money on diapers. It was not a good situation. My wife and I, of course, were there behind her and have been using formula and making sure he was getting nutrients, but my daughter was not nurturing this child in any competent manner, and while not malicious, was often neglectful of the baby. It wasn't easy to make the call, but it was necessary and something I had long prepared to do. My daughter hates me. My wife is empathetic but has stood by my decision from the start, and I'm both uncertain and at peace with my choices. Part of me feels like I did the best I could for everyone involved, and part of me knows I betrayed my daughter on a horrible way, and part of me knows that this baby deserves better than what she, and really we, could provide.